Dragon Warrior, the anime, is an interesting piece of anime history in North America. It was one of Saban's first English dubs. Long before the company took a crack at helping dub Dragon Ball Z's first dub, long before it adapted Super Sentai into Power Rangers, and long before Digimon. Dragon Warrior was the localized name of the Dragon Quest franchise, the ever-popular JRPG series that has long taken Japan by storm. In late 1989, Studio Comet decided to create a Dragon Quest anime, something that could work as a pseudo-adaptation of the first 3 games, and the next year, Saban localized it. Well, some of it. The original Dragon Quest, Abel Yusha Densetsu, that's Legend of the Hero Abel, ran for 43 episodes. The Saban dub, which featured voice work by Canadian studio BLT Productions, only aired 13 episodes before the series' abandonment. Only roughly a third of the series was dubbed, and as I do, in a recent rewatch, I thought about the localization differences between the original Japanese version and the English dub. So I decided to take a look at the whole series. Well, the English dubbed series anyway, so I'll be looking at the differences in the first 13 episodes and what exactly Saban changed for this version. So with that, let's get looking at how Saban changed the English dub of Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest Legend of the Hero Abel. Before we get into the respective episodes, let's take a look at some of the general changes done to the series. The first difference is, of course, the name of the series. The original title, Dragon Quest Yusha Abel Densetsu, which can be translated as The Legend of the Hero Abel, lost a lot of itself in the localization process. The Dragon Quest series was already known as Dragon Warrior at this time in North America, bolstered by the games, of which 3 were out by the time this series started airing. But the dub's title, Dragon Warrior, isn't anything fancy, nor is it a giant loss for the subtitle. The second is that the opening has completely different footage. Funny enough, even the Japanese version's opening is about a minute in length. That just doesn't usually happen, but both versions are roughly a minute long. The dub takes footage from the entire series and does its own thing, while the original Japanese version is an homage to the characters and is a lot slower in its connotative meaning. The dubs, as was the style of the time, tends to just overemphasize the action components of the series. The theme is also just an instrumental action piece. Nothing amazing, but nothing terrible either. The ending theme is also completely different. The Japanese version will usually have a character gaining stats in this cute homage to the NES games. Then it will have the next episode preview, and then its ending credits. The American ending credits theme is the same as the opening. The third difference is that the dub creates its own episode title. It uses a short scene from one of the episodes, while the Japanese version keeps it very simple with a level number, denoting which episode it is. They're both around the same time length, but you can clearly see that there's a huge variance. As such, most of the original Japanese titles were just level and the number, so episode 13 would be level 13. The Japanese DVD release of Abel did give elaborate titles to the episodes, and they are similar to the Saban episode titles. The fourth difference is that a few characters have either shortened names or completely different names. The pink slime Kaka became Coco, and the Yajirobe looking guy has his name shortened from Moko Moko to simply Moko. These were the only ones I observed, but other than that, just about every character keeps their original name, which, considering that these names were pretty Western sounding to begin with, it's not hard to see why. The fifth difference is that in some of the Japanese episodes, the fade to commercial break will have a Famicom controller, a pause screen, or both. This is to remind the audience that these were games first, and that this series is closely aligned to them. The American version scraps this and just has a fade to black instead. The final major difference is that the score is completely scrapped, as most if not all of Saban's productions were. Interestingly, the original Japanese version used music from the games. The dub does too, but its original renditions of the game's OST are not the exact same as the Japanese versions. It can be hard to tell the difference, but the score is completely different at almost every point. But in the few instances that they sound familiar, the dub is creating its own mix of Dragon Quest music. That's pretty ballsy, but Saban loved to hire Shuki Levy for music renditions, so this was always expected.
Born on the day of the dragon, in the year of bronze, she has always been both curious and inventive. What she does not know is that she is also a descendant of the guardians of the Red Stone, which has been passed down by her tribe for generations.
And with that, let's get looking at the episodes. Episode 1 has been retitled from Aryahan Village parting to Aryahan Village. The first change is that narration is added to the beginning of the episode. The original Japanese version uses the score to tell the story, but the dub would rather tell its audience than simply show things. Abel pretending to be dead after he almost drowned is cut out, just as he smiles at the audience. Abel trolling Tiala and her socking him on the head is cut out as well. Moko picking his nose is also removed, as the gesture is a pretty rude one in most cultures. Abel being tossed around by Baramos loses most of its shots. The dub only keeps the first one, but originally he was tossed around quite a few times. And the last change of the episode is that there is a shot swap when Baramos is about to throw Abel out of his ship. The dub cuts out the extreme close-up of Abel's face and replaces it with Baramos laughing, and Coco being cute. This scene still lasts the same amount of time, however. Episode 2 has been retitled from Aryahan Castle Departure to Departure. The first change is that the dub trims the recap by a few seconds. Nothing major is lost here. Baramos' main follower has his fingers burnt off when he tries to get Tiala's stone. The dub cuts out the shot of him growing back his fingers and starts at his reaction. A shot is removed of the village elder falling to the ground after Abel throws a rock to help set him free. Trust me, it makes way more sense in the context of the episode. Moko defeats the monster that attacks the village, but the dub cuts out Moko's cool pose and the announcer stating that the monster is dead now. When the bug monsters invade the castle, a shot of some of the soldiers being eaten and killed by the bug creatures is cut out of the dub. Episode 3 has been retitled from Aryahan Village parting to Libi Village. The first thing isn't a change, but it's an observation. Janak is a main character who is introduced in this episode. In his introduction scene, he is not only obviously drinking alcohol, but he is pretty drunk throughout the entire first act of the episode, and Saban keeps all of it. There are clear references to his drinking, and I can't estimate how wild this is. I can't believe this aired on TV for kids at some point. That's incredibly wild, and nothing with a Y7 rating outside of maybe a Disney film could get away with this now. With that, the first change of the episode is that when Daisy stabs one of the rabbit monsters, the extreme close-up of her sword piercing the rabbit is removed. And the only other change of this episode is that the old man who gives Abel a plot device just straight up collapses and dies. In the dub, the scene of him collapsing and dying is removed, but all the other scenes of him prior to this are kept, so he just kinda disappears. The dub changes the dialogue to not mention his immediate passing, and it actually works. Good on them. Episode 4 has been retitled from Female Warrior Daisy to Girl Warrior Daisy. The first change is that footage is moved and removed when Abel fights the cloud monster. First, this shot of Janak and Moko is moved to just a few seconds later. Then, the close-up of the cloud monster with Abel's sword on his head is removed. It's pretty graphic, right? Except Saban keeps a portion of the same footage, so it might have been more of a time constraints thing. The extreme close-up of the catfly approaching the frame and Abel unable to move is cut out of the dub. Additionally, when the catfly attacks Abel, it draws blood. The shot of it flexing as it shows this to Abel is removed. And finally, the catfly lying heavily wounded when Daisy throws her sword to defeat it is cut out. It's two different shots, one of them with the creature's green blood on full display. Episode 5 has been retitled from The Legend of the Dragon to the Port of Myla to Port Myla. The first change is the shot of Daisy slowly climbing the mountain is removed. It's pretty obvious why. But when she falls, the dub cuts out a few seconds of the close-up of her bottom, for also very obvious reasons. As Abel tries to pull on the obelisk the second time, the shot of him straining so hard he starts to bleed from his hands is removed. Here's a pretty wild change. The original has a prostitute. No puffu nonsense. It's a straight up hooker trying to coerce Janak with a good time. In the dub, the pan from her legs is removed, and the dialogue is changed to the woman selling tickets to a bullfight. Pretty clever, Saban. And then the long scene of Janak trying to get some action is removed. And the last change of the episode is the very quick shot of the thugs crashing to the ground as Abel beats them up. Only the hard hit to the ground is removed, everything else is kept. Episode 6 has been retitled from Stone Breath, Light the Fire of Hope to Light of Hope. Surprisingly, the only change of this episode is that when Abel does the Fire of Hope challenge, he sees Tiala's face over the fire. He then preps his fist to try the challenge. Both of these shots are removed from the dub. Episode 7 has been retitled from Life or Death, Flee the Dragon Strait to Escape from Dragon Channel. The first shot removal is Daisy's motion sickness on the boat as she nearly vomits. When the bandit attacks the squid, the close-up of him digging his dagger into it is removed. Similarly, when Daisy attacks the squid, the same thing happens. The close-up of her sword digging into the squid is also cut. Abel stabbing the squid's eye and the sword breaking off in it is removed. And after the commercial break, the dub cuts out a scene of the squid swinging Abel around. Here you can see that Abel's sword is still stuck in the squid's eye. This was obviously removed in the dub, and that same change happens again when we get to see it in a different angle. Janak launching a magic spell to save Abel and shaving off the squid's tentacle is removed. And the last change of the episode is that an insert song is removed from the bar scene near the end of the episode.
あと2、3杯飲めば思い出すでしょ。この酔っ払いがモーラの都がどこか思い出せ。幸せになろうよ。I need another drink. Then I'll talk.
You drunk?
Yeah.
You don't remember, do you, Jonak? The liquor's made you forget. Maura Town, that's a...
Episode 8 has been retitled from The Weakness of the Demon King Baramos, The Strange Night of the Lunar Eclipse to Lunar Eclipse. For this episode, all of the changes are centered around Daisy being naked, and all occur in the first act. First, the long shot of Daisy taking off her clothes and jumping into the hot springs is removed. We get to see, well, a bit of everything, so it's obvious why it was cut. Then, here, the dub decides to keep reusing the side shot of her in the water, instead of this aerial shot in the original version. Then the closer side shot of her, where you can see some detail, is also cut, followed by the aerial perspective of her laying in the water. Janak's intention is changed from seeing Daisy naked to messing with her things, and this close-up of him explaining this is cut out. Another shot of Daisy enjoying herself in the hot spring is removed later. And once Abel decides that he wants nothing to do with this, these quick glimpses of Daisy putting on her clothes are cut, as Abel walks right towards her, unaware of the gag that lays before him. And when he does see Daisy, we get to see just how Saban decided to handle this. First, it should be mentioned that Abel's context was changed from trying to get away from seeing Daisy naked to wanting to scare her. So the dub removes this shot of Abel arriving to Daisy putting on her bra, and it moves to this reaction shot of Abel a few seconds later. Daisy screams so hard that her bra falls off. This is of course removed from the dub. In Abel's eye, he sees a naked Daisy, and in her eyes, she sees Abel. This is quite the conundrum. Since the dub is changed to Abel scaring her, footage of her screaming is re-added, and Abel's exposition is given over it. The dub uses a still of Daisy screaming that is quite obviously an edit, but given that dialogue is happening simultaneously, it's a lot more dynamic in person. Pretty wild stuff, right? And these are all the changes in the episode. Episode 9 has been retitled from Charge into Garum, the village of Luida, to Attacking Guam. The first change is that when Daisy kills a few of the bug monsters, the dub recycles some frames of the bug she destroyed that is obscured. This way, the graphic bug deaths that have blood and disfigurements are removed. It's a lot of recycling footage, but they make it work. Then, Abel decapitating the bug that comes right at him is replaced with a recycled shot of the bug creature flying towards him. Abel slicing this bug is actually slowed down in the episode, and the sword cutting through the creature is completely removed because of it. The cast overlooking the poisoned pond is removed. There's a few dead creatures in it, which I believe was the reason why. Then the dub adds a shot of the scenery from earlier in the episode. And the last change of the episode is that when Baramos ties down Abel, the close-up of the saw that is about to slice through Abel is removed. Episode 10 has been retitled from Training in the Floating City of Vergen to Training and Preparation. The first observation is that this episode contains blood. Go early 90s Saban! A flock of monsters attack Vergen, and the pan of the civilians fighting them shows them all with blood. Then, the side shot of one of the monsters picking up an old man is removed. Daisy freaking out after Abel has thrown her a bunch of rats is cut out, right before their training montage. And the final change of the episode is the removal of an insert song that plays during Abel's training montage. The song is replaced by instrumental Saban original music. Episode 11 has been retitled from Find the Snowstorm Sword, Nethertown Trials to Hardship in Nether. The only change in this episode is actually a pretty small one. Moko chastises Janak for sending Abel on his own to Nether by choking Janak. The first shot is removed, but the second one is kept. Episode 12 has been retitled from Break the Curse, the Sad General Rudolph to General Ludolf. First, it should be noted that the monster in this episode, General Rudolph, has been retitled to Ludolf, which I think is pretty funny. In the flashback with the warrior that pierces Rudolph with the ice sword and freezes it, the shot of the sword piercing his neck and blood gushing out of it is removed. Next up is one of the most bizarre changes I've ever seen in a Saban production, let alone an English dub. In the original, Tiala sings a song to hype up Abel. It's very linear and the scene follows through a progression, as most things would. The dub creates its own insert song, but changes so much of the context and scenes around that it barely makes sense. The dub's insert song is almost like an 80s pop song. Think Minmay and Robotech. This is a multi-minute change that is quite baffling to me. I understand changing the music, considering the original was in Japanese, but why change the footage around so drastically? It doesn't make any sense. See for yourself.
あの音楽は何かしら。
妖精たちの音楽。
あふれる日だまりの中。
ティアラ何やってんだ？
歌を歌っているのよ。
It reminds me of something.
What?
A song.
Once long ago, before the dawn's time, when peace covered the land like
What is that noise you're making, Tiala?
It's singing.
Then, General Rudolph, being pierced by Abel twice, has two shots that contain blood, so of course, they're both removed. Abel stabbing Rudolph in the neck, a la the hero in the flashback, is cut out, as Rudolph writhes in pain and lots of blood pours out. Then the close-up of Rudolph's wound is also removed, as he lays motionless on the ground before he freezes up again. The dub also slows down the footage of Rudolph refreezing. And the last change of the episode centers around the dragon that Daisy kills. She pierces the dragon so hard it has wounds on its neck, right? The dub removes all shots of the dragon with the damage. Then it inserts a shot of Abel killing off a different dragon to replace the one that Daisy killed. Only it keeps the death animation of the dragon that Daisy killed. You can tell because the location of the dragon shifts if you slow down the footage, and if you really slow it down, the wound that was cut out of the dragon that Daisy pierced comes out. It's right there. Saban, you can hide from the broadcasters, but you can't hide from me! It's a small change, but definitely an edit they tried to hide. Nice try though. Episode 13 has been retitled from Take the Dragon's Key, Crash into Najima Tower to Najima Tower. The first change is that when the cast finds a boy that they take with them, Janak observes that the boy puts his hand on Daisy's behind as they walk. The dub cuts out the shot, and Janak's reaction of Daisy's butt being very petite. During the battle atop Najimi Tower, this side pan of Daisy slicing through the monsters loses the first few seconds. Very few frames are cut out right before Abel slices through this monster, which is actually kept in the dub. The dub replaces some of the footage of Abel slashing the tower's monster with the reaction of the boy, and then cuts out Abel coming down from the pain inflicted on him. The monster is shown losing its horn, but the dub cuts out the monster picking up his horn and charging at Abel, which causes an inconsistency as it's seen holding its horn as it falls off the tower. And the last change of the episode and the English dub in general is that the dub adds a line at the end about how this is the end of Abel's adventures. For now, we'll see if we get more funding, haha. This line doesn't exist in the Japanese version, but that's literally how they present it.
見たことがあるぞ。あ、アベル、あれ。蜃気楼だ。これと同じだぞ。
I'm sure I've seen this picture somewhere before, but I can't quite place it.
I bet I can place it.
Having reached level 13 in the Dragon Warrior quest, Abel and his friends have earned a period of rest. Our story has come to an end, but who can say what the future may bring?
And those are all the changes in this very bizarre piece of localized anime in North America. There's a lot of weird changes, of course, stuff that barely makes any sense, like Tiala's trippy song sequence, but I'm genuinely surprised at how much was kept. Janak is still an alcoholic, there's clear mentions to death and murder, with very few exceptions, and a lot of the graphic violence is kept. Part of me wonders how the series would have fared had it come out a few years later, after the Japanese broadcast had finished. Pretty wild stuff, and it's a shame that this series was never completed. I do hope the series gets picked up someday, perhaps by Discotech and given a full release. I'd love the first 13 dubbed episodes and all of the Japanese version in the same set, but that might be a tall ask. In the meantime, most, if not all of this series is on YouTube to engage with if you're interested in learning more about it. With Dragon Quest getting ever more popular in the West, helped by a strong 11th title, I can see this series garnering more interest. Time will tell, but with that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to help the channel grow, and let me know your thoughts. As always folks, have a good one.